Oh, what's poppin', everybody? It's your boy Joey back with more Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In the last episode, we wrapped up the main story. With Layla, she exited the Animus, and we learned that. What did we learn? We learned that the temple that Eivor and Sigurd went to, Yggdrasil, that's the name of the temple. We learned that Yggdrasil was kind of causing another great catastrophe in a way. Try to follow along with this. It's very difficult to explain. So, Layla woke up from the Animus, and she learned, okay, another great catastrophe is happening. We have to get to Yggdrasil. And Sean and Rebecca are like, okay, yeah, that's where the pedestal is. That's the same pedestal that Desmond used in Assassin's Creed 3 to save the world from the Great Catastrophe back in 2012. Now, they begin to explain that the pedestal that controls like the Earth's atmosphere or whatever, it's hard to explain, but the pedestal needs to slow down the machine that's protecting the world. They can't stop the machine, they have to slow it down. It's in the codex here. Aha, Yggdrasil. So Layla came all the way to Yggdrasil to slow down the machine that's protecting the Earth's atmosphere. Think of it like an overheating computer in a way. If the computer overheats, it's not going to work properly. It's going to be slow, or it's going to mess up your software or whatever. So what Layla had to do was slow down the machine enough so it would still protect the world, but not stop the machine entirely, so it can still protect like the Earth's atmosphere and all that from the Great Catastrophe. Apparently here it says Yggdrasil is a massive simulation device built by the Isu 75,000 years ago. From what we have seen, it appears this device was once a method the Isu used to generate and explore possible futures, alternate realities, and counterfactual histories. And with the right input, it can generate any sort of reality the user desired, which is exactly what Sigurd did. He wanted to experience Valhalla, and so when Sigurd and Eivor came all the way to Yggdrasil, that was what they were experiencing. It was a simulation. It was not a real Valhalla. That's why Eivor felt like it wasn't well earned. It wasn't real. Nothing there was real. So Layla came to Yggdrasil to touch the pedestal to slow down the machine. And while she was there, she entered... Well, the machine attached itself to Layla, which then put her in a simulation known as the Grey. Not being alive, not being dead, but your conscious is still aware of what's going on, and it's basically in limbo in a way. And so she met Basim while in the Grey, and he explained, if you touch the pedestal here, it'll slow down the machine and you'll save the world. And she's like, okay, cool. So she does that. After doing that, she then meets someone known as the Reader. Now, I mentioned this in the last episode. The Reader was actually Desmond Miles. And what he's been doing for the past 8 years, he was running simulations basically to find a way to stop the Great Catastrophe from ever happening again. And so he would run a simulation, look through it, be like, no, wipe it clean, start over, we're gonna have to redo it again. And so he's been doing that for 8 years, going through all the different timelines about how to stop the Great Catastrophe. And once Layla got there, she said, hey, what if Desmond never saved the world? What if he let the Great Catastrophe happen back in 2012? We'll have a whole set of different timelines. And with those timelines, maybe the people would understand what the Great Catastrophe is and know how to stop it from ever happening again in the first place. Now, the Reader, or Desmond, whichever you prefer, doesn't have Desmond's memory. Desmond basically doesn't have his memory. He doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't have like any consciousness of that. So with Layla in the Grey with Desmond, they have the whole new set of timelines to go over on what would happen if Desmond hadn't saved the world in 2012. So they have all those timelines to go through, and Layla warned, well, not really warned, but told Sean and Becca, hey, don't come find me, I'm fine, I'm gonna be alright. And after she got attached to the machine, to this machine over here, Bassam came unhooked from the machine himself, and he fell on the staff of Hermes. Now, the staff has healing abilities, obviously, and so when he landed on the staff, it healed his body completely, and it almost looked like he hadn't aged a day. And so he went to find Sean and Rebecca, and he told them, he's like, hey, Layla's here. She doesn't want to be rescued, but she's fine. But Sean and Becca, they don't trust Bassam. They think he's kind of a trickster in a way. And so he asked, like, do we have a mentor? Like, is that still the practice? We're known as assassins now, not hidden ones. And they're like, yes, we're known as assassins. He's like, okay, do we have a mentor? And he said, yes, his name is William Miles. Bassam's like, okay, I want to meet William Miles. So Sean and Becca are going to find William, and that basically ends the story there for Bassam, in a way. Well, not really ends the story for Bassam, but just ends the story with the modern time. That basically ends, like, what happened in the last episode. What I want to describe in this episode is everything that happens in the game. It is very confusing to explain, but I will do my very best to do so. I want to start with the Asgard storyline. Some of you may have already been able to piece this together, but for those of you who don't understand, let me make it clear. Odin, let's find the people. Give me a second. Where are they? So many people here. Here it is. Odin, Loki, Thor, Tyr, and Freya. All of the Asgardians here are reincarnated as the current characters that you see. Odin was reincarnated as Eivor. Loki was reincarnated as Bassam. Thor was reincarnated as Halfdan Ragnarsson. If I can just find him. Where the hell? Thor was reincarnated as Halfdan. And Tyr was reincarnated as Sigurd. And Freya was reincarnated as Svala, which is Volka's mother. So all of these Asgardians were reincarnated as the characters in the game. So throughout the game, Odin is constantly talking to Eivor, trying to influence his decisions that he makes, whether he should like choose certain kings over others, whether he should kill certain people. He's basically like his conscience in a way. And throughout the game, Bassam notices something off with Eivor, and it's kind of it clicks later on, but Bassam realizes that Eivor is Odin, and since Loki was reincarnated as Bassam now has Loki's memories, and since Bassam has Loki's memories, he remembers that Odin tied up Fenrir, Loki's son. He binded Fenrir, and he wants to like keep him tied up until the day of Ragnarok, when Odin and Fenrir will do one final battle. But Odin wants to live his life without like looking over his shoulder constantly. He wants to just live his life until Ragnarok comes. So Loki was completely upset with this, and of course he wanted revenge on Odin. And since Ragnarok was coming, Odin needed a way to protect all the Asgardians. He needed a way to kind of cheat death. So he traveled all the way to Jotunheim to get a special kind of mead. Once he got the mead, he had to mix it with a certain water from a place called the Well of Mimir. And when Ragnarok came, he drank the mead. He told all the other Asgardians, drink the mead. Make sure to like upload your consciousness to the life tree. And from the life tree we will go, the life tree we will one day return. And what that means is that he was basically going to be reincarnated as Eivor. And so that was what was happening. He uploaded his consciousness, all the Asgardians uploaded their consciousness into the life tree when Ragnarok came. And Odin said, make sure you upload your conscious, but not Loki. Loki cannot join us.
Terror. Let it flow. To cheat your death.
From the life tree we go,
To the life tree we shall one day return.
Mind and spirit will surge to a time far beyond your own. To a time in which you shall be reborn.
None may follow. Loki least of all. It is done. Time to face our end.
So he tried to forbid Loki from coming, but Loki managed to sneak in and find a way to upload his consciousness to the life tree, so he would then be reincarnated as Basim. And now, with Basim alive, he wanted revenge on Eivor. And he had all the same memories as Loki, and he knew what Odin did to Fenrir, and he wanted revenge. And that was basically the entire plot. That was the reason Basim followed Eivor and Sigurd to Yggdrasil at the end of the game. You can also remember when Basim and Eivor tried to rescue Sigurd from Folke. They had a conversation around the campfire, and Basim began to explain. He said, "I once had a son, but he was killed by someone I once called my friend. He was a friend, a mentor, and someone that I could trust with anything. But someone you can trust with anything can take away everything." So that's what he was referring to. He had the same memories as Loki, and he was remembering what Odin did. So that was basically what happened with Loki and Odin and Eivor and Basim and all that. The next thing I want to talk about is Hyrrokian, Suttungr, and Gunnlodr. Now, these are the Jötnars that you talk to during the Jotunheim story arc. And what this describes, or what this basically says is, well, not the description, but what I learned is that Gunnlodr is the Isu Minerva. Hyrrokin is the Isu Juno. And Suttungr is the Isu Jupiter. Now, when Odin goes to the well of Mimir to mix the water with the mead, he finds Hyrrokin there, because she asked Odin to get a sample of the mead for her as well. And when Odin got the sample for her and meets her at the well, he says, "What are your reasons for the mead?" She says, "My reasons do not concern you as your reasons do not concern me. We all have our reasons for this." But she begins to explain that she wanted to save her husband. Now, I don't know who the Jotun version of her husband is, but what I do know is that since Hyrrokin is Juno, she's referencing that her husband, Aita, she wanted to save her husband, Aita. And she explained that that during Ragnarok, the Jötnars will die. Not just the Asgardians, but all the Jötnars will die as well. And so she began to explain to Odin, "We've tried many ways to avoid our fate at Ragnarok, but the mead is our sixth attempt to try and avoid this." So she's been trying to find ways to avoid the deaths at Ragnarok, same as Odin. But Suttungr believes that the mead is too dangerous and shouldn't be used. But Hyrrokin went behind Suttungr's back to try and get the mead and try to save Aita, as well as save like the Jötnars during Ragnarok.
And you, what is your sacrifice?
My liberty. Suttungr and Gunnlodr will not forgive this trespass. They will hunt me now to the edges of the 9 worlds.
What are they to you?
We ruled together for a time, a noble triad, as father, mother, and the sacred voice. 6 times we tried to blunt the fangs of Ragnarok, and 6 times we failed. The mead was our 7th. But they feared how it might change the humans for the worse, so they locked it away and banished me from Utgardr. By your efforts, you have returned to me what is mine. The ashes of my husband. He made his own sacrifice for knowledge. With a few changes to this mead, I may undo old sorrows.
Do as you will. I've had my fill of this cursed realm.
Bright mind, heart's ease. Beloved, I will not fail you again.
One other thing I want to point out. One other thing I want to point out here. Gunnlaudur. I told you that she is Minerva, the Isu Minerva. But if you remember during the Jotunheim story arc, she talks through an archway to like a portal or something. Odin meets with Gunnlaudur, and Gunnlaudur's talking to through an archway. And she says, I keep hearing voices in this archway, and I'm trying to understand it more. And so she says, can you hear me, prophet? Are you there? But there's no voice in return. So she and Odin leave, and just as they leave, you can hear a hushed voice, and the voice says, "Who are you?" And if you remember, all the way back in Assassin's Creed 2, at the very end, when Ezio enters the temple, he meets the Isu Minerva, and Minerva refers to Ezio as the prophet. And since Gunnlaudur is the Jotun version of Minerva, that means that Gunnlaudur was technically talking to Ezio through a different timeline. I don't know how to best describe it, but it's basically like she was talking to him through a separate timeline. It's weird. And that's what happened in Assassin's Creed 2. Minerva was talking to Ezio at the end of AC2.
No, not yet. Listen. I want you to hear the voices. Are you there, prophet? Can you hear me? Perhaps another day. Another thread. Come. We must not keep Father waiting.
Who are you?
Greetings, prophet. It is good you have come. Let us see it, to give thanks. We must speak.
Who are you?
What else do I need to cover? I have a list of stuff here that I need to talk about. So once Basim wakes up from the machine, once he falls off the machine and lands onto the staff of Hermes, he then begins to talk to the staff. And if you remember, the Isu Alethea is in the staff, and she's been constantly talking to Layla, trying to she's been talking to Layla the entire time, but Sean put an implant just below her ear to avoid Alethea talking to Layla and trying to manipulate her. And so when Basim lands on the staff, he begins to talk to Alethea. He says, "Are you here, my love?" She says, "Yes, I am here." And she asks, "Is the Mad One here?" Basim replies, "No, it's just us now." Now, Basim referred to Alethea as his love. So what that means is, since Basim has the same memories as Loki, that means that Loki was talking to Alethea, and Alethea is Loki's wife, Angrboda. So the entire time, Alethea was Angrboda, and Loki / Basim was trying to reunite with Angrboda, as well as find his family and find his children. Now, it says here in Fenrir's bio that he had other siblings. He had the goddess Hel and Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. And at the end of Valhalla, Basim talks to Eivor's grave, and he says, "I will find my family." And of course he will find Fenrir, hopefully. Well, not really hopefully, Fenrir's evil. But anyway, Basim wants to find his family, and that includes Fenrir and all his other children. But, yeah, like, Angrboda was Alethea the entire time. So it's difficult, but yeah, that was that point there. I mentioned here, I already talked about Layla and the Reader. One other thing I want to make mention of is Ragnarok. Now, Ragnarok is the end of all Asgardians. All the Asgardians will be killed during Ragnarok. And if you remember, that is actually... Ragnarok is another word for, like, the Great Catastrophe. The Great Catastrophe was the end of all Isus. But Ragnarok is the end of all Asgardians. That's basically the exact same thing. It's like the end of the world. That's the parallels with Ragnarok and the Great Catastrophe. One last thing that comes to mind right now. Now, before you travel to England, Eivor visits Valka. And she says that Eivor will betray Sigurd. And throughout the game, Eivor is constantly trying to tell himself, like, I would never betray Sigurd, he's my brother, I would never do anything like that. And what Valka was kind of referring to, since Eivor is the reincarnated form of Odin, and Sigurd is the reincarnated form of Tyr, what Valka was implying was the betrayal with Odin and Tyr. Because if you remember, in the fight against Fenrir, when Odin tried to tie the cord around him, Tyr said to Fenrir, "Open your mouth and you can take my arm if Odin is untrue." And Tyr stuck his arm in Fenrir's mouth, and then Odin tied the cord around Fenrir, and of course Odin was lying. Which then made Fenrir bite off the arm of Tyr. And that was the betrayal that Valka was talking about. Since Tyr was reincarnated as Sigurd, and Odin was reincarnated as Eivor, that is the betrayal that Valka was talking about. Now, you could mention that the betrayal she's referring to is, like, the choices that you make throughout the game. Like, choosing to sleep with Randvi, or not supporting Sigurd in trying to find the Saga Stone, or not, like, supporting him when he's making judge decisions with the people of Ravensthorpe. Like, you could argue that is what Valka was talking about, but if I'm certain here that Valka was referring to the betrayal with Odin and Tyr. I think Valka was able to, like, sense it a little bit, because she is the seer, and she has those types of powers, and I think she was able to sense that, like, they were reincarnated as the gods. So I'm pretty sure that was the betrayal that she was referring to, from Odin betraying Tyr and having Fenrir bite off Tyr's arm. Now, Sigurd lost his arm, but that was not due to Eivor, that was from Falke. So that's different, though. I'm pretty sure that is all I have to say. I explained that everyone here was reincarnated as the current characters. I explained Hirokian is Juno, Stunger's Jupiter. Now, I always said that I already said that Layla talks with the reader slash Desmond, that they've been trying to find ways to prevent the Great Catastrophe, and they're going through a whole new set of timelines to describe how the Great Catastrophe would have played out if Desmond never saved the world, and the remaining people that would have survived the catastrophe in 2012, they would know what to do later on if it were to ever happen again. They'd be like, oh, okay, we lived through this, we know what to do to stop it, so we don't have to worry about it ever again. But since Desmond saved the world, there's only a few people that know of the catastrophe, and those are the Assassins and possibly the Templars. But it's not the rest of humankind. I think that is all for me to explain. So, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed my explanation, make sure to hit the like button. It really helps out. If you know anyone that might enjoy this video, make sure to share it with them and tell them to subscribe. And if you yourself aren't subscribed already, well, you're just doing life wrong, and you can correct that mistake very easily just by hitting the subscribe button. And then hit the notification bell to know when I'm uploading next. And while you're at it, make sure to take a look at many other Let's Plays I have on my channel. I have Injustice 2, I have Thief, Deadpool, the Batman Arkham series. Plenty of Let's Plays for you to watch and enjoy. Once again, I will say thank you, and I will see you guys in the next episode.